We begin this hour with a major development coming out of the UK. Today, a Scottish Court of Appeals ruled that Prime Minister Boris Johnson's suspension of Parliament is unlawful, further complicating the drama in London. With just 7 weeks until Great Britain is set to leave the EU and this deadlock in Parliament rolls on, it would appear nobody is able to predict just where these cards are going to fall. For that, let's talk to our resident prognosticator, former UK MP, George Galloway. So, George, what does this mean for the prorogue of Parliament? What sort of power does this new ruling out of the Scottish court mean for Boris Johnson's plan?
Well, it could mean everything. It could mean nothing at all. Scottish courts belong to a different jurisdiction. Scotland has a separate legal system. The High Court in London has already ruled prima facie that it was lawful. This judgment may affect it. The Scottish court did not injunct or order the Prime Minister to recall the Parliament. It left that to the Supreme Court in London, which will consider the matter on Tuesday. My guess is that the Supreme Court in London will hold to what is the English legal position, that this is a political matter, not a legal one, and that they will not interfere. But you never know. Judicial activism is always a danger in politics. I believe myself that judges should stay out of politics. They are not elected people, and they risk damaging the integrity and the reverence which people hold the legal system in if they get too active in politics. But we'll have to wait till Tuesday to see. But it does beg a question you and I discussed last week, which is, why did Boris Johnson bother to prorogue the Parliament if the pro-EU Parliament was going to truss him up like a turkey in any case? They had plenty of time left to do that without having prorogued it. And they did it last week. They passed a law in record quick time, yes, which extended the Brexit deadline. It's all now a matter of whether Boris Johnson obeys that law, of course. But it seems like it was forlorn hope on the part of the Prime Minister if he thought that by proroguing the Parliament he'd get rid of all his troubles. He certainly has not.
And George, what is the Queen's part in all of this? Isn't this, in a way, a grave affront to her granting her Prime Minister the suspension?
Well, I don't myself believe in kings and queens. I think it's a childish idea. But as long as we've got one, and as long as the great majority, I think, of the country would like to keep it that way, and the Queen herself personally has extremely high prestige, this is indeed an affront to her, because it's a suggestion, more than a suggestion, it's an assertion that she has also behaved unlawfully. And given that the law belongs to her, all criminal cases, all legal matters here are Regina versus, or somebody versus Regina. She is the embodiment of law in the country. If Boris Johnson has behaved unlawfully in proposing this, then arguably she has behaved unlawfully in assenting to it.
Right. And where do the public then fall here? Do the citizens of the UK still want the Brexit? Are they tired of this stalemate, George?
Well, I think, yes, they're tired of the stalemate. As to whether they still want the Brexit, that's not how it works. You know, you could have held a poll 6 months after Donald Trump was elected and asked the people, do they still want Donald Trump? That's not how it works. You vote on a referendum to Brexit, to leave the European Union, and that must be implemented. Otherwise, democracy means nothing, and the majority's votes have thus been stolen. And if you steal people's votes, well, there will be terrible consequences, perhaps, in doing that. My own view is that the country is still divided, more or less 55-45, 52-48, who knows. But the bigger question is whether democracy is to be implemented or not. So I'm still 100% committed to leaving the European Union, but even if I wasn't, I'd be insisting that the decision that the majority made be implemented before anyone tries to overturn it. As I've said to you before, people can form a political platform to rejoin the European Union after we've left it, but what they can't do is stop us leaving it in the first place.
That is absolutely a valid point. And George, we spoke with another guest last week about how businesses in the UK are better prepared for a no Brexit deal more than the media has led on. Would you agree?
Yeah, you know, this no-deal scare, Project Fear, it runs out of the same stable as your Russiagate did. It is actually hysteria. It's not facts-based. It is an emotional spasm, a paroxysm of fear that the leaving of the European Union is going to happen. Nobody mentioned no deal on the ballot paper. It was a perfectly binary question. Do you want to remain in the EU or do you want to leave the EU? It didn't say leave the EU if the EU will allow it, or if the EU will negotiate a satisfactory deal with you. It was stay or leave. We voted to leave, and leave we must. I've said to you many times, leaving without an agreement with our former partners will not be a walk in the park, but it will not be the end of the world either. And we've been through worse, much, much worse in our history, in the history of some people still alive today.
Agreed. Absolutely, George. Well said. We'll have to leave it right there. As always, appreciate your insights. George Galloway, thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.